All right, on to this story now. Government has terminated the state of disaster on electricity with immediate effect. Cogta Minister Thembi Nkadimeng and Electricity Minister Kgosientso Ramokgopa are giving an update at 2 p.m. this afternoon. Earlier this morning, government also withdrew the exemption preventing Eskom from disclosing irregular expenditure. Heidi Giokos is in Pretoria ahead of this briefing with the ministers, and she's joining us now live just to give us a preview on what we can expect. Heidi, first of all, maybe this is a question that is a joke, but I think it's quite serious. Do we still keep the Minister of Electricity after the state of disaster was revoked?
Yes, well, it seems as though the Minister of Electricity will still keep his position as Minister of Electricity. We've received a notice that he will be briefing the nation tomorrow at Union Buildings around his visit to the 18 power stations that he started on about 2 weeks ago. So it does seem as though he still will remain as the Minister of Electricity. And I think it's imperative to highlight the fact that when the Minister was appointed as the Minister of Electricity, it wasn't under the national state of disaster. The President, during his State of the Nation address, made it very clear that it's solely to deal with the load shedding and the constant rolling blackouts that we have experienced, and it's to try and get the country out of that. So it seems as though the two issues were separated but linked in some form or another, because we will be hearing from the Cogta Minister as well as the Minister of Electricity as to why they came to the decision to actually terminate the national state of disaster, specifically linked to the energy crisis, and what the way is forward.
Heidi, have you gotten a chance to glimpse through the papers from the state attorney that they sent to OUTAS, letting them know that they'd be withdrawing or revoking the national state of disaster?
Yes, so I think for context purposes here, we do know that OUTA, together with Solidarity, had gone to the courts to get the courts to declare the national state of disaster, specifically focusing on the energy crisis, basically unlawful. And it was government's turn to basically file answering affidavits, and that did not happen. Instead, OUTA was informed by the state attorney that there is a withdrawal of the national state of disaster. It seems as though, from what Cogta has indicated in its very lengthy statement, is that they are going to focus on the rolling blackouts through the Energy Crisis Committee instead of having a full national state of disaster. It's going to be important to ask the question, Masego, as to why this wasn't done in the first place. Why did a whole national state of disaster need to be declared before they realized that it wasn't actually imperative for that to be put in place? I must say, Masego, it's a day of withdrawals and terminations, because we also heard from the finance minister today. It is a joke. It's funny, because you look at government and you ask yourself, what exactly is going on here? Because firstly, National Treasury exempts Eskom from, releasing its wasteful, irregular and fruitless expenditure in its annual financial statements and moving it into its integrated reports. That has since been withdrawn, and now the national state of the disaster has been terminated. But all of this playing into the energy crisis, all of this still feeding into the energy crisis that we face as a country, and that we are still subjected to rolling blackouts. We'll obviously hear from the Minister of Electricity tomorrow as to what the forecast will look like come winter, because we do know many power stations are still not operating at full capacity. There are many units that are still not working. That magic number that the electricity minister has spoken about is 6,000 megawatts rather, that is still needed to get us out of load shedding. So a lot needs to be discussed, and a lot that government needs to answer to.
And Heidi, it's quite interesting to see all of these withdrawals happening, particularly around Eskom. It's as though government is making South Africa somewhat of a trial and test when it comes to our energy crisis. It seems nobody really knows what to do.
Yes, but that is concerning in itself, Masego, because how do you have a trial and error with one of the biggest crises that we face in this country? There are lives at risk. Our economy is at risk. Our economy has suffered. People have actually lost their lives and livelihoods because of this energy crisis. So clearly government needs to get its house in order, because firstly you have a withdrawal of the exemption that was granted. and National Treasury scrambling this morning before Parliament to try and explain why they even considered it in the first place. And then you have a termination of the national state of disaster. So again, you're going to have government really trying to explain and ease South Africans as to what they are doing when it comes to this energy crisis. And at the end of the day, we're still subjected to rolling blackouts. So it's not as though these decisions are helping in any way when it comes to stabilizing the electricity grid.
And on that note, let's remind South Africans that at 4 o'clock, we go up to stage 4. Heidi Giokos live for us in Pretoria. Thank you. Let's leave it there for now.